Welcome to another Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy show right here on Pub Sports Radio. It is Thursday, January 27th. Ian Cameron with you. It's Conference Championship Sunday in the National Football League. We've got two title games on deck in each conference as we determine who goes to the Super Bowl in LA in a couple weeks. Let's get right to it. We'll start with the AFC Championship game, 3 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Cincinnati Bengals, Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City 7-point home favorites. 7.5, though, in a couple of spots starting to pop up now on the Chiefs. Total in the 54.5 range right now in this game. The Kansas City Chiefs surviving in an absolute epic. We all saw it. One of the classic all-time great, and that's no hyperbole or over-exaggeration. That is fact. It was one of the truly great playoff games that I've ever seen. And I know I've been watching NFL playoff football since the early 90s as a little kid. So there's a lot of years that I've gone through this year in and year out watching NFL playoff football. And I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, that was one of the best playoff games I've seen. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs for finding a way to get the victory. A crazy game, just an unbelievable showing of elite quarterback play from both Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes in that game. They both ran for over 50 yards. They both threw for over 300 passing yards. They both had no interceptions combined. Just flawless, pristine quarterback play from both of those guys. Unfortunately for the Bills, the difference was, well, Kansas City got the ball first in overtime thanks to winning the coin toss. That really, truly ended up being the difference in the end. Cincinnati overcame just not a great day for their offensive line. I mean, Joe Burrow was sacked, 8 or 9 times in that, though, and they beat the Titans on the road last Saturday to get here to the AFC Championship game. When I look at the matchup here, we know Joe Burrow is not going to be in awe of playing at Arrowhead Stadium. He's talked all week. I'm not worried about the noise. I played in louder stadiums in the SEC. He's been very good on the road in his career. He's been an ATS machine on the road. He's been an ATS machine as an underdog. Certainly, the technical trends point to the Cincinnati Bengals in this game, along with the fact that we know for the last couple of seasons, the Kansas City Chiefs have struggled when laying more than a field goal, and especially when laying a touchdown or more, like they are here in this game. That does bother me about Kansas City. What also concerns me about Kansas City is, I know I've been talking about this all week long. When it's worth talking about, is there a potential for the Kansas City Chiefs to maybe be a little bit lethargic early in this game? That was a physical, mental, and emotional drain, that game against the Buffalo Bills, because it had everything. It was high-level football. It was extremely intense. It was pressure-packed because every play was so important down the stretch. You just worry about Kansas City maybe starting off sluggish, a little lethargic, a little slow, and not just because of that situation with the Bills game last week, but also because this has been a pattern at times with Kansas City in the postseason at home. A couple years ago, we saw this team start off slow in playoff games against the Chiefs, against the Texans, and really have to come back from an early deficit to win some of those games. I worry about that happening to them here. I also am concerned about the state of the secondary for the Kansas City Chiefs in this game. Now, from all indications, everybody's going to play in this game, including the guys that got banged up last week and injured in the game against the Bills, specifically talking about Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. He'll play in this game. He's been practicing this week, but will he be close to 100%? That's a question. Rashad Fenton, another key member of that secondary, will play, but again, nicked up last week. Same thing with Charvarius Ward. So keep an eye on that. The secondary should have all their starters intact, the Chiefs. The question is how healthy, how mobile are they going to be? All that stuff. Are the injuries that they're playing through going to show up potentially in this game? Because you've got to worry here about a three-pronged attack in terms of receivers for Cincinnati with Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, and it's going to be a handful, I think, for Kansas City in the secondary. And look, it's not like Kansas City's secondary stopped Josh Allen from ripping them down the field. Gabriel Davis was a one-man wrecking crew against that Chief pass defense last week. So, I still have concerns. And I'll say this again about Kansas City's defense. You look at down the stretch, this Kansas City team, look what they got. Mahomes in the offense bailed them out in that game. And I also want to point out something else, that down the stretch, Kansas City's defense, remember when we thought they were playing so much better? Look at the Chiefs' defense has found it. I will say this about them. Chris Jones being back has helped. They bring in Melvin Ingram in a trade with the Chargers. That has significantly bolstered the pass rush. Those have been good moves for Kansas City. I get that. But I will state this one more time. When you look at Kansas City's quote-unquote defensive resurgence down the stretch, let's talk about the games that they did look good in. Again, when you look at Kansas City's defense down the stretch, the only really good offenses that they play, Kansas City's defense down the stretch, here it is. They went up against the Steelers twice, once in the regular season, once in the playoffs. And we know the Steelers offense was definitely had its issues. They went up against Denver, which is an offense that didn't have Teddy Bridgewater down the stretch, and that's not a great offensive team. And they gave up points in that game. And Las Vegas, who are a decent offensive team, but not all that spectacular by any stretch. In the two games against the absolute best offenses the Chiefs faced late in the regular season, they gave up 34 to Cincinnati. When these two teams met in the regular season, they gave up 28 in an overtime win against the Chargers. And then we saw what they did last week against Buffalo. They got absolutely ripped apart. So they gave up 34 to Cincinnati. They gave up 28 to the Chargers. And they gave up 36 in the win against Buffalo last week. So all this talk about this great resurgent defense for Kansas City, well, yeah, against pretty bad offenses, they've looked resurgent. Against the good offenses, they've still had problems. They haven't gotten off the field. They haven't gotten stops. They've allowed touchdowns in those games against Buffalo last week, against Cincinnati in the regular season, against the Chargers down the stretch. They couldn't really stop Herbert in that game. Mahomes in the offense had to bail out Kansas City in that game as well. So to me, this comes down to a game where I think it goes back and forth. It's probably very high scoring, much like Kansas City versus Buffalo was last week, and much like the regular season meeting between the Chiefs and the Bengals was a high-scoring affair. It got into the 60s. I think we see this same thing here. I do like the game over the total, and I do like Cincinnati here. I mean, I'm not going to argue with Cincinnati's road track record with Joe Burrow. They actually have the situational advantage. Kansas City, even though they're back home here, they're coming off the draining marathon against Buffalo, and Cincinnati's actually got an extra day. Having played Saturday afternoon last week against Tennessee, I like the Bengals here, and I'm going to split it up between the first half and the full game. You can get first half Cincinnati +4, and you can get the full game, of course, +7. I think that's the way to go here. I respect Kansas City, and if they find a way to win, kudos to them. But I don't think they're going to win by any sort of margin. I think this is a competitive game. I think we've seen enough from the Bengals. If the Cincinnati offensive line shores things up a little bit, because last week, unacceptable to give up 9 sacks. And if Joe Burrow learns this week, throw the football away when you're under pressure, don't hang on to it, and don't lose that sack yardage. Don't cost your team valuable real estate and field position. That can't happen again if you're Joe Burrow. You got to chuck the ball away when you're in trouble. Hung on to the damn thing too much last week against Tennessee. That's got to change. So I think if you're Zach Taylor, the coaching staff will remind him of that. And if you're Joe Burrow, you're not stupid. You hung on to the football too much last week. I think he'll learn from what he did last week. Just, you got to get rid of the ball when you're under pressure. You can't take a 10, 15, 20-yard loss on a sack in a playoff game and lose field position. Field position is so important in these games. Your season's on the line. Can't have those kind of big sack yardage loss numbers. And I think Burrow will kind of learn that after what we saw last week. As far as player props go in this game, look, I think you got to look more toward, I would say, Chase and Higgins from a receiving prop standpoint. The prop that I really, really like in this game is over receiving yards for Joe Mixon, the running back for Cincinnati. Because one thing we've seen from Kansas City is we've seen a good amount of pass rush from them, bolstered with Ingram coming back, or Ingram being traded for with the Chargers. Bringing Chris Jones coming back from injury. We've just seen a much better Kansas City pass rush. Joe Burrow is going to have everybody telling him, you've got to get rid of the football. You can't hang on to it when the pass rush starts to get there. So what does that mean? That means he's going to have to find a safety valve. He's going to have to find a short passing game type of option. And that, to me, is Joe Mixon, because Joe Mixon is a very good pass-catching running back. I think you're going to see a lot of screen passes, a lot of small dump-off passes here to Mixon in a game like this from Burrow, especially when he, I think, is going to get it through his head this time around that, hey, I can't be taking the sacks I did last week. So I think that makes sense from a prop standpoint, looking toward Mixon over receptions, Joe Mixon over receiving yards as well. Those are definitely props that I would probably look at here in this game. Cincinnati still does struggle with tight end coverage. That's worth mentioning going into this game here against the Kansas City Chiefs. So didn't exactly light it up early against Buffalo, but of course he got it going late. Had the big catch to set him up in field goal range. Had, of course, the big touchdown to win it in overtime, the big catch in the end zone to win that game. Got going as the game went on, and that could be a matchup problem for Cincinnati a little bit. Kelsey's going to be a very, very tough cover for a Cincinnati team that hasn't always covered the middle of the field well. So Kelsey props on the KC side. You could look at, like I say, Mixon over receptions and receiving yards. It's early in the week still, a few days from this game kicking off, but those are the props that I'm looking at as of right now. Let's go to the NFC Championship game. San Francisco 49ers, LA Rams. Rams 3.5-point home favorites, 46 the total in this game. So early in the week, my first thought when I saw the number, right? Rams 3.5, 4 at home. I said to myself, you got to take San Francisco. They're 6-0 straight up, 5-1 against the spread, head-to-head versus the Rams in the Sean McVay versus Kyle Shanahan era. We know the Rams have definitely had the better of this matchup repeatedly. This has been a matchup problem for the LA Rams. So first thing I thought this week was got to take San Francisco. But the closer we get to kickoff, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm kind of gravitating the other way and looking maybe at the LA Rams here. When you look at the Rams here in the playoffs, pillar to post beatdown and domination of Arizona, which actually to me didn't impress me because I thought Arizona they didn't play. But for 3 quarters last week against Tampa Bay, that was the same thing. Pillar to post beatdown by the LA Rams. They were the much better team. And I know some people are trying to say, well, Tampa Bay had no Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown left the team and banged up a little on the offensive line. I don't want to hear excuses. The Rams were terrific for 3 quarters in that game. They were excellent, both sides of the ball. And suddenly Tampa Bay mounts that furious comeback. A lot of it self-inflicted wounds and mistakes and miscues by the LA Rams, multiple turnovers. Cam Akers, the cardinal sin as a running back, when you're handing the ball off, when they're handing the ball off to you, trying to drain the clock and end the game, you cannot fumble in that situation. Ball security has to be there. It has to be your number one focus. And obviously, he didn't get the job done in that regard. Fumbling at a critical time, setting up Tampa Bay with a short field already on the Rams side of midfield to tie that game with a touchdown, which they did. And then at that moment in time, we thought, the Rams going to completely cough this one up. You saw the look on the faces of so many of the Rams players. And NBC camera crew, by the way, did a great job in that game, really getting a shot of a lot of the Rams players on the sideline. You really got to look at them after Tampa Bay tied it like, whoa, deer in the headlights look like, my gosh, we could actually lose this football game where we've completely crushed this team for 3 quarters. Now, all of a sudden, we might lose. But in their time of need, in their time where their backs were against the wall, Matthew Stafford had the biggest throw of his career. It's not even close, not even a debate. That was the biggest throw of his career, the biggest moment of his career so far, and it was big time. Throwing it down the field to an open Cooper Kupp, who somehow the Tampa Bay Buccaneers allow him to get behind the defense, a cover zero defense. I have no idea, not zero, why Todd Bowles called that scheme of defense on that play, and it ended up hurting him and ended the Bucs' chances right there. But Kupp, terrific catch and throw by Stafford. It was right on the money, right in stride. It was an outstanding play, setting up the game-winning field goal. That showed me a lot of resilience by the Rams, especially from their quarterback. And look, the best part about Matthew Stafford's game and the 2 playoff wins for the Rams, how many interceptions? 0. That's the best part, I think, of the way he's played here so far in the playoffs. 0 interceptions for a guy that entered these playoffs throwing 10 of them, 10 interceptions in the last 4 games of the regular season combined. So he is taking care of the ball. He's not, making mistakes. And the offensive line's given him a decent amount of time to throw the ball, which has been key. And what really impressed me is, and that's why I really take, not offense, but I really disagree with people saying, well, Tampa Bay was vulnerable. That's why the Rams win. Just like the people that said Arizona was vulnerable. That's why the Rams won. At some point, you got to give the Rams credit. And you have to acknowledge the fact that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' strength defensively is the defensive line. It's up front, and it's the linebacking crew, too, with Shaq Barrett and company. It's a really good linebacking crew and defensive line that the Tampa Bay Bucks have. They do. The JPP and Ndamukong Suh. They've got a terrific group up front there. And the Rams blocked that group well enough for a lot in that game to give Matthew Stafford time to throw the football. And they did it with their veteran left tackle, Andrew Whitworth, missing in that game. He did not play for the LA Rams last Sunday due to injury. Now he is going to be back. It looks like he's been practicing this week for the LA Rams, and they expect him to be back in his regular left tackle spot, the anchor of that offensive line for the Rams. So Whitworth is expected to play here for the Rams in this game. That is absolutely significant, especially because when you look at San Francisco on the other side, Nick Bosa, we were worried about his health. He played last week, and boy, did he play great against Green Bay. Of course, Fred Warner, the linebacker. You still have, a really Dre Greenlaw and Jaquiski Tart. I mean, it's a really, really good defense, San Francisco, and it's going to be a challenge. But I like the way the Rams' offensive line has given Stafford the time. There's been really hardly anybody nipping at Matt Stafford's heels in the first two games of this postseason. Arizona didn't get much of a pass rush. Tampa Bay didn't get after Stafford as much as you would have thought with that defensive line. So that's why I think there's potential for the Niners to be able to block up front this very good 49ers front. And if they do, they will make plays because the 49ers secondary is still the vulnerable part of their defense. It is. I'm not saying it's a bad secondary. I'm not saying it's a horrible pass defense, but there are better pass defenses, many teams with better pass defenses than the San Francisco 49ers. And when you look at the way the Ram passing game is coming together now, Tyler Higbee, the tight end, Cooper Kupp playing at an incredible level all year, and now you've got Odell Beckham playing at the level that he's played for the last few weeks. Odell Beckham is playing like a focused superstar receiver again. Where did that Odell Beckham go in Cleveland? I'll never know. People were saying that Odell Beckham was the issue with the Browns there, that he was causing a ruckus in the locker room, and people weren't really didn't get along with his teammates and all this yada yada yada, and verbal vomit that you heard about the Odell situation. Look, I wasn't there. People, all you watching right now on this show, you guys weren't there. All we have is conjecture and what people say and what people report. But I'm telling you right now, what I do know is that publicly, every Ram player, Stafford, Kupp, McVay, the O-linemen, you name it, running backs. You know what they're all saying about Odell Beckham in L.A.? It's been nothing but a hard worker. It's been nothing but a great teammate. He's wanted to learn the offense. He's wanted to learn the system. He's worked hard to do that. He's stayed after practice to try to get even more acclimatized with the offense because, again, he just arrived with the Rams late in the regular season after leaving Cleveland. So, everybody says he's been nothing but a good teammate and a great player for them, which is completely different from the stories you were hearing about OBJ in Cleveland. So again, that's what we're hearing. So it seems like he's fit in nicely, and it's hard to deny that with what you're seeing on the field. You're not seeing him, John, with teammates. You're not seeing him, yelling at Stafford or anything like that. It looks like it's harmony. It looks like it is a very nice, relationship that's developed here. The Rams, his teammates with Odell, and the result is Odell's playing great. I've not seen Odell Beckham play like this in a very long time. And him stepping up as a legit second threat that is every bit as dangerous as Cooper Kupp now makes the Rams passing attack even more difficult to stop, in my opinion. And that's what I think the 49ers might be up against here in this game. So, and let's talk Niners. I talked their defensive front's good. I do worry about their secondary, and I'll mention one thing about San Francisco. This is the thing that really frightens me the most about this matchup here. Jimmy Garoppolo and the offense cannot get away with the offensive ineptitude that they showed for the majority of last Saturday night in Green. Now, I know the conditions were frigid there. I get it. Frozen tundra. It was beyond beyond cold there in Green Bay. It was frigid. It was horrendous temperatures to play a football game in. I understand that. But still, the offense did absolutely nothing in that game other than a couple of throws to Kittle and a couple of run plays to Samuel and Mitchell to get him into field goal range at the end. I mean, they really had in that game from a points perspective, they had 2 field goals offensively. And of course, the only touchdown was the block punt, which was Green Bay special teams doing them in. Really, Green Bay special teams is handed San Francisco the victory. The offense didn't do much. And the Rams defense, aside from that fourth quarter where, look, a lot of Tampa Bay's points were, the throw to Evans, to beating. I didn't like that. I didn't like Mike Evans beating Jalen Ramsey so easily for that touchdown last week. But a lot of the touchdowns that were scored or by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were, Tampa was playing Rams were playing prevent defense. Tampa got a short field on the game-tying touchdown after the Akers fumble. It's not like Tampa Bay drove the ball right down the field from their own 10 or their 20-yard line against the Rams defense. A lot of it was good field position. They took advantage of big-time prevent defense late in the game. Then the fumble set them up with a short field. Rams defense played very well in the Arizona win and for the most part in the Bucs win last week. That's going to be a challenge for San Francisco. I mean, at some point, you can't be so pedestrian offensively in the passing game. We saw Dallas eventually key in on San Francisco's run game, and they eventually almost came back because of it, but they fell short. They just dug themselves too big of a hole. And then last week against Green Bay took away the run game for a large part, and Jimmy in the passing game was really not there. Again, if not for some special teams blunders, do we even see San Francisco here in the NFC Championship game? So I've got concerns here about that San Francisco offense. And I know head-to-head this has been a bad matchup for the Niners. I feel the Rams are much better right now and have been much better the last couple of weeks than they were down the stretch. I feel they seem to be bringing it all together at once, bringing it all together at the same time, both sides of the football, which I like to see. And I'll mention one last thing about the San Francisco dominance. It really does look difficult on the surface to not take San Francisco getting more than a field goal, having won 6 straight against the Rams. I understand anybody wanting to take San Francisco. I get it totally. But to me, when I look at the last meeting, and people will say, when then San Francisco came back from 17-0 down to beat the Rams, they really do own the Rams. That game meant everything to San Francisco. They don't even go to the playoffs unless they win that game in Week 18 against the Rams. The Rams, they would have won. They had to win that game, San Francisco. The Rams would have liked to win that game to ensure that they got the NFC West title, but they ended up getting it anyway because Arizona was losing pretty comfortably to Seattle in that final game. And I think those elements, San Francisco, you can say all you want, you need to win the game if you're the Rams to win your division, but there's a difference between needing a win to just win a division, knowing you still play next week, and needing a win to keep your season alive to ensure that you play next week. So keep that in mind about the Week 18 matchup. I don't want to say it was, take anything away from the Niners being able to come back in that game. But you know what I mean? There was not that same level of urgency and desperation for the Rams in that game a few weeks ago against San Francisco as there was for the 49ers. Because the 49ers just had to win that game or else they're not even in the playoffs. The Rams still have another game. Even if they lose that game, and even if they were to lose the NFC West division, which they did not do. So to me, now we're going to see what they're all truly about here. Niners, playing with their season on the line, and now the Rams playing with their season on the line. And I think right now, I'm willing to trust the Rams here to finally end the skid that they've had against the San Francisco 49ers head-to-head. So right now, I'm leaning 3.5 with the Rams, but I'm not going to lay more than a field goal. I will only pull the trigger on the Rams if it's -3 or better. I would. The way I would bet the Rams right now, and I mentioned this last night with Jimmy the Bag on the NFL Pub Hub, I would look at a Rams team total. I really do think their offense is capable of at least 25 points in this game. The team total's 24.5 right now on the LA Rams. You look at the Rams, they're putting up high 20s and 30s, on a regular basis here down the stretch. And I think they're capable of getting to that number here in this game as they take on the San Francisco 49ers. I think the offensive line with getting Whitworth back is huge. I know San Francisco's defensive fronts played terrific here in the first two playoff games, but I like what I've seen out of this Rams offensive line. If they're going to have Whitworth back, and I think that is definitely going to be significant. So it has gone up a little bit. This Rams team. Let me see. I'm trying to see. Did it go up or did it open? Where did it open at here? I'm just going to see it. It's 24.5, at 25.5 in other spots. So make sure again you shop around. But I would rather the team total than laying the points, because what if we see 30-27 Rams? Yeah, or 31-28 Rams or 27-24 Rams. You can cash your team total, but you lose, laying the points because they would have only won by 3. And of course, they're laying 3.5 right now. I could definitely envision a scenario like that. So that is why, for me, I like the Rams, but unless it gets -3 or lower, I'm not going to lay the points. I prefer the team total here with the Rams in this game. As far as props go, Samuel rushing yards for San Francisco, even if the ground game doesn't work initially, they're not getting away from it. And Deebo Samuel's getting a shit ton of carries. He was limping. The one thing I will say is he was limping at the end of the Green Bay game. Let's see how healthy he is. I'm going to read some practice reports today and tomorrow. But if it looks like he's feeling good again and he's not in too much pain, obviously the over rushing yards, rushing attempts makes sense with him. It doesn't matter how productive or not early in the game the run game is. San Francisco is not abandoning it for any reason. They will stick to it. They know that's their bread and butter. So you will see Samuel get the reps, the carries, all that. As far as the Rams go, I'm going to probably stick with Odell. Whoever the best cornerback's probably Ambry Thomas, I would say, on the Niners right now. They're going to try to match up with Kupp. Odell Beckham's been the beneficiary of all the attention Cooper Kupp gets. And even then, Cooper Kupp can still somehow find his way open. Beckham is a difference maker right now. He's playing at a high level. They haven't been able to contain him the last couple of weeks. So OBJ in the receiving game, props definitely make sense. Receptions, receiving yards, very much interested in that as well for this NFC Championship game. There you go. Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy, NFL Conference Championship Sunday preview. Thanks to everyone joining me live on YouTube. Hit the like button. We only have one more Football Frenzy show left, and it'll be in 2 weeks from now, Thursday, February the 10th. Yeah, Thursday, February 10th is going to be our season finale of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy, a complete Super Bowl preview show. We'll look at side, total, all the props. We'll have a ton of props. Actually going to be a very prop-centric show in a couple weeks, and definitely looking forward to that. Super Bowl preview show, Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy in 2 weeks, Thursday, February the 10th at this time, 1 p.m. Eastern. Definitely, I am looking forward to that. All right, we'll wrap things up with a Championship Sunday best bet coming up right after this. Right, Southtown 101, San Antonio, Texas. Stop in, great food, drinks, live music, DJs, karaoke, Southtown 101. Manscaped, promo code PubSports. Get 20% off your purchase, Lawnmower 4.0, or any Manscaped product, 20% off using the promo code PubSports. And MyBookie.ag, again, NFL Championships, Conference Championship Sunday this weekend. NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, it's all going on right now. Sign up for an account. MyBookie.ag, Bitcoin accepted currency for your deposit. MyBookie.ag, promo code PubSports. All right, best bet for Conference Championship Sunday. Let's see what we can find here. I'm going to go with let's do the Cincinnati Bengals, and let's do the split. +4 first half, +7 full game. All right, this is a split bet for me, so I'm going to recommend both. And if you want to do what I did, I'm not saying you have to, But if you want to do what I did, it's 50% of my wager on the first half, Cincinnati Bengals +4, and 50% on Cincinnati Bengals full game +7. I think we have a competitive game. And I don't think the Bengals are backing down. I don't think they're in awe of Kansas City. I don't think they're scared of playing at Arrowhead Stadium. The Chiefs are now laying 7, and they've long term been very poor against the number, laying big points. And Cincinnati, beat them earlier this year in Cincinnati. I think they can hang in this game. I think they match up well. And the Chiefs having to come off that thrilling, enthralling, incredible game and victory against Buffalo. It might be difficult early to muster up that same emotion and intensity. It might take them a little bit to get going. So that's why I also like the first half. We'll split it up for best bet. Cincinnati +4 first half, Cincinnati +7 full game. Best bet for Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy for NFL Conference Championship Sunday. That'll wrap up this edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. Thank you to everyone for joining us. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time, Thursday, February 10th, with the Super Bowl betting preview edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. Have a great weekend. Enjoy NFL Conference Championship Sunday. Good luck with all of your wagers. I'm Ian Cameron. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks for another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy right here on Pub Sports Radio.